We're back. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but again, hey, we're in the Austin Convention Center, and it's not totally under our control, but we're doing the best we can. So with me, we're going to continue our discussion about water. We're going to continue our discussion about irrigation. I've got Kurtis Charling and AJ Bussan with us. Kurtis, why don't you give us the overview of what's going on with technology and irrigation, especially as it relates to the cloud. We hear a lot about the cloud and what that means for our photos, for our iPhones, and so on. But what does it mean for irrigation and farming?
Sure, yeah, thanks, Phil. So, with the cloud and with irrigation technologies today, you have remote telemetry, which is essentially the remote control and monitoring of irrigation systems. So transmitting of the data from the system to the cloud so that someone can view that data from anywhere in the world and then simultaneously control that system through the cloud, pushing it down to that irrigation system. But one of the more recent advancements in irrigation technology has been cloud-based irrigation scheduling with remote telemetry. And so cloud-based irrigation scheduling essentially collects all of the data associated with that field that plays a role in irrigation management, and then uses proven science and research to then output essentially the when, where, and how much as it relates to irrigation management. And so if you couple that with the remote telemetry options like I talked about before, you can seamlessly then control that irrigation system while also taking into account that when, where, how much water to apply to be more efficient in your irrigation application and efficiently using
So
water.
how are you discovering the when, where, how much information?
Sure.
Are you putting like a little stick in the ground that's talking to it?
Sure.
How are you measuring that?
Yeah, and so you can put a probe in the ground, but with cloud-based irrigation scheduling, one of the massive benefits that it's associated with that technology is that you don't need that probe in the ground. It's using modeling and then proven science and research, which AJ can talk a little bit more on later on, but that proven science and research has been around for 30, 40 plus years.
So you're actually using either machine learning or AI
Yes.
to predict what that behavior is going to be.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, so the AI and the machine learning elements are obviously new developments in technology and cloud computing that we're able to account for and utilize with our products.
So AJ, let me switch this to you. When I think about machine learning, I look at predictive behavior. We're talking about the natural environment. We're talking about unforeseen weather conditions, whether it be rains, whether it be extreme heat, and so on. How does this, machine learning and AI, affect this predictive behavior, and how quick does that happen?
So I think what the system is really doing is analyzing the climate data that's available globally, from a sunlight perspective, from a temperature perspective, and doing the calculations to estimate, well, this is how much the potential evapotranspiration is. That's how much maximum water use would occur on a daily basis, given the amount of sunlight, given the relative humidity, given the wind speeds. And then the other part of it is it has to integrate what's the stage and development of the crop. How big is the crop? How much canopy does it have? The green leaf area over a certain land area is an estimate of what is the actual ET relative to the potential ET. So for example, if our crop is only 50% canopy, the models would project that the crop is actually only using 50 to 60% of the potential ET. So you got to take, so what the cloud analytics is basically doing is taking the climate data that's available on the web.
And that's real time?
And that's real time.
Okay.
And so basically how the process is working, every morning 2 to 3 a.m., it's recalculating what happened the previous 24 hours. Incorporates precipitation data, incorporates the amount of irrigation water that was applied by the system, and not just as a whole, but geospatially referenced as the pivot goes around in a circle or as the linear system goes across the field. It will predict how much water was applied at each given point in any given time point when the water was applied. Integrates that in with the size of the crop canopy, what the soil characteristics are, and basically provides an output that is, this is what the current water status is of our crop. Are we in good state? Are we overwatered? Are we underwatered? gives a prediction of where we're going to be in 24 and 36 and 48 hours. And then from that, we can build a prescription for what that pivot needs to do to water that crop as it goes around the circle, if it's a center pivot irrigation system. And then the manager can go out and say, okay, I agree with this recommendation. I think this is what I want to do. Or they can go out and they can ground truth, feed that data into the system and update it. Say sometimes the precipitation here might be 2 to 3/10 of an inch off. Well, that's enough to make a difference in a 1 day period. And so it could go out and you can adjust for that and say, okay, we're adequate, or no, we're good for now, but by midnight that pivot needs to start, so that it's not just what's going to happen in the next 10 hours. That pivot takes 48 hours to go all the way around on a field. And so you got to have an ability to project where that crop's going to be as the pivot finishes up on that loop. And so you can make that change as it goes around the circle.
And how do you calculate what the growth of that crop is? You mentioned 50%.
Right.
Is that a manual calculation that the manager, inputs, or is that also using some kind of technology that says this crop is 20% or 50% where it is?
Crop canopy modeling has been part of what a number of universities have been doing for several decades. I think it's much more advanced for wheat, corn, soybeans.
Yep.
Basically because there's a lot more agronomists that work on row crops that have sort of figured those things out. But now there's a lot of effort underway within the potato research community, where a lot of folks are spending a lot of time actually modeling the canopy. I know that's been going on for at least 30 to 40 years. Some very straightforward rudimentary models all the way to now environmentally based models that are projecting the growth and development of the potato canopy on incoming solar radiation or sunlight and temperature.
Well, both of you, thank you so much for everything you're doing for the potato farmer, to increase yield, to not waste water, to do all those things. So thank you both very much.
You bet. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. Appreciate
We're
it.
going to take a quick break. When we come back, a lot more from the Potato Expo to come.